A couple other things that we've had going on as well that we're super excited about is the expansion of pre-K. We have almost 6,400 students that have been a part of our universal pre-K. We've been expanding plus 1,000 something more seats than we had from the year before. If many of you have known, I've been talking a lot about trying to make sure that we get early childhood education as a part of our DNA in our school system, because beginning to educate children do not start when they go to pre-K or kindergarten classrooms. They actually start from the time that they are born. And so our goal is to work with daycare service providers to be able to work and support our kids, to be able to get them to catch up as early as possible in the process of doing that work. We've also been very excited about what we call our Cradle to Career pipeline work. As a part of our Cradle to Career pipeline, we've been working to ensure that we change our system into a more workforce development model approach, where we're going to be working with schools around looking at some of our major industries so children can receive dual enrollment degrees, not only a high school degree, but also an associate's degree and or an industry-based certification. One of the things I learned pretty quickly since moving to Baton Rouge has been that many of the people who are born and raised in Baton Rouge or in the state of Louisiana, they stay in Louisiana. And so therefore, it becomes pretty easy to determine who are your future lawyers, doctors, construction folks, people who are working to build our city. And so we believe that it's important to design our school system in that way to help make our city even better and create a better workforce development in that work. Another big thing that we've been working tremendously on has been a partner with the mayor's office around literacy. We believe that it's important to have children be able to read, write, and comprehend in a major way. And a part of our work has been to create a literacy task force where we're working around right now to create a system where we can have children to be able to read no matter where they are with different people in the city. And we're going to have more information to come out soon about that as we kind of work with groups like LSU, Southern University, BRCC, and other business partners as we're building that work together. The other thing I would tell you is we're super excited, super excited about this coming year. We have large plans around opening up some new schools that are coming up. A part of that opening up new schools is I'm working on right now getting us to open our first visual performing arts school, which will be a 612 in Baton Rouge. And we're going to be making that announcement pretty soon around how we'll be able to get more children working together around the arts and a lot of different things. We've been talking to our great partners at the Arts Council and folks at the Chamber and some of our community partners, trying to work with them to really increase the work that we do and support within our neighborhoods. Because what makes Baton Rouge a strong city is its neighborhoods and its communities. And a part of what I always tell folks is schools are a part of communities. It's not communities are a part of schools. And the stronger we build those communities, the stronger options we'll have for families to choose and to be able to choose schools within our system for quality and choice options. Last but not least, I wanted to share is we really believe it's important that we build out an opportunity for our families and communities to engage, no matter where you are in the city, whether you are in North Baton Rouge, Mid-City, or South Baton Rouge. One of the greatest things I learned from being number 2 of a superintendent is that great superintendents understood that their job was that they had to learn to work with the village. And if you've heard me talk before, I tell folks I may be the superintendent, but it takes a village to do this work. And I see myself as working to help coordinate and facilitate all of the opportunities for us to connect so we can be able to do some great work for our children in the city. Right now, when you look at the work that we're doing with our out-of-school providers and our community partners, we're really focusing a lot on creating opportunities within neighborhoods so people can go out and be able to engage in a lot of different ways. We've broken our city up into 5 major regions that we've done where we've looked at ways that we can differentiate a little bit on providing additional supports on the areas of need. We've also been looking about how we expand our magnet seats across the city and provide an opportunity for us to open up application processes so that can happen across our city. And we're looking at also how we're going to expand gifted seats so we can have more gifted seats open for kids in the city with our partners. I think that the biggest thing that we've learned the most is that with strong partnerships across sectors, including the community and faith-based and other partnerships, we can do a lot of great things, and that's what people are going to feel when we go into our work this particular fall around our work in this city. And so those are the major components that I had to share this morning with you concerning about all the work that we have going on. I will share this one tidbit with you. Every time I come, I get an opportunity to talk. People say, well, help me understand why Baton Rouge. And I say to them, help me understand why not. You know, as a city, it's important for us to see our assets. And I don't know if it's because I'm coming from a different place, but what I learned pretty quickly is that we have a lot of great community assets in this city that we don't always maximize. And a part of what I see my work is to make sure that us as a school system and our children are maximizing our community assets like yourselves to be able to not only educate, but continue to help shape the education of our kids who are going to be the next us, right? As I shared before, we're pretty clear who are the next population of children of Baton Rouge. Because, you know, like I said, many of us that grow up here, they stay here. And so it means that you can design who are going to be the next journalists and the next mayors or the next doctors, lawyers, engineers. And that's kind of how I see this work moving forward. So I look forward to any questions you may have or anything you like to engage with. But I thought I'd at least give you just a tidbit of all of the good stuff that we have coming down the pike starting in August. And we're kind of working through that right now. Yes?
So you mentioned utilizing the assets within the community to help accomplish your plan. What about you? What have you found to be the biggest challenge in utilizing the assets within the system that you're now running?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning the people, how it's structured, how y'all historically, how the school system has historically put its plan, whatever that plan may be, in place. Is there one particular roadblock or a wall that you see has to be broken through to create change so that your plan can get through?
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it a roadblock more than I would call it trying to give a different roadmap. I think people only know what they know. And if you're only exposed to what you only know, then at times it becomes a challenge to see other possibilities, right? And I think that what we're trying to do when I think about us creating our strategic plan and we're doing different things is to get our folks to think a little bit differently and to say, folks, when you see our community and the different opportunities, how do we get the folks within the community to engage with them, what we're doing, to be a part of the process? And I think that's the shift. Because I actually find people to be really great here. I tell folks, they always ask me, how is it here? Are people great? I said, this is a great place. I mean, it's also a great place where you gain a lot of weight pretty quickly, I've learned. But the reality is people know what they know. And so trying to work with them to provide opportunity to see, here's a different way that you can actually get to the same goal. Because everybody wants children to be educated. But getting a little bit of, giving a different mindset around that work or connecting with people a little bit differently, I think those are the big questions. And also, how do you make people feel that it's an opportunity for them to engage and help families feel like they can navigate with you in that process? And so I think that's where, if you ask me about where the roadblocks are, that would be kind of where the mindset shift has to be. I don't find it to be the people, the internal people, or the system itself. I mean, every system is designed in a particular way, whether it's designed in a good way or a bad way, however you want to frame it. I think the big conversation is how do you shift that? And I've found people to be willing to make shifts and changes. I don't know if because I'm the new guy that came in and they're open to that, but I haven't found a lot of roadblocks. I actually found people wanting things to be different, but they also want to be able to see that vision and understand what does it mean for them and how do you walk side by side with them to do that work. Yes?
I think something on a lot of people's minds is in the era of COVID, what this new school year is going to look like. Can you shed any light on what those protocols are going to be like?
Yeah, great question around the protocols for COVID. So a couple of things that are making some change. We followed the guidelines that the governor has provided. Instead of 6 feet, will be more 3 feet. We've also talked through about, cleaning. Those things are still going to happen. Kids still have to wash their hands. We've been talking through about how do we go about temperature. Currently in schools we have machines where you can walk in and take temperature. So schools, we're working through with schools around specific guidelines around that, but also trying to bring back a sense of normalcy, I tell folks. Because, as you can imagine, we've all kind of gone through this trauma together and trying to make that shift. It's been a very, very hard year for our teachers trying to do, we call it simulcasting, where they had to teach half of a class in a classroom, but also teach through a camera where they have kids at home. And so what we've done now is that we've actually told families and communities, I made an announcement a few weeks ago about families, we want kids to come back full in person. But we also opened up a virtual school where it's pre-K to 12 with a magnet component for parents who still feel a little uncomfortable to be able to participate in that. And so some of our protocols around things that we're going to keep is still your washing hands, going and getting checked. Those components are still going to be there, but we'll make a few shifts around, how close you can be to each other. As you can imagine, children who are like first or second grade or kindergartens, them trying to stay close to each other, I don't think they followed any type of COVID rules, but trying to work with teachers on how to create space for that has always been a big challenge. But I think we're becoming more and more comfortable with that. Principals in the week of July 19th are going to be all together with them. We have principals with their leadership team, and they're creating an operational handbook, which they're going to be following through around academics and operations to help them through each of the protocols with COVID-19. We're going to put a few standard things in across schools, but I think we're going to be in a very good place.
Are you going to be requiring face coverings still in all of the schools?
Yeah, we've decided that we think it should be more of a choice for that, not necessarily just a requirement. So, in some communities they want to do that, others not. And so right now where we're standing on that issue is to look at it as a choice. Unless something changes, we've been working tremendously hard with our health advisory committee, which consists of our public health officials in the city from the mayor's office, as well as doctors from Our Lady of Lake and other medical areas to help advise us on all of our protocols and everything we've been doing. So it's been a really great experience to engage with them and also give us opportunity just to look at the overall health of kids across our city.
And you mentioned that families have the option to sign up for a virtual hybrid option. Are there going to be some teachers dedicated just to the virtual aspect? And do you also know how many students signed up for that?
Yes, there will be. As a matter of fact, families have signed up. I think it's about 450 families currently that are in the virtual option, and we have an entire school dedicated for that alone. If a parent does not want to send their child in person, we will give them the option to be in the virtual school, and then we will go from there.
Do you know the percentage of your teachers, your educators that are vaccinated? Are you asking those questions of them?
Yes, we monitor that consistently. I don't have the percentage number with me right now, but we have been on target pretty much close to just above half of our teachers, but I don't want to give you a number that is not accurate right now. But we've been moving pretty tirelessly around making sure our staff gets hired. As you know, we have about 6,000 employees, about 3,200 teachers in the school system with paraprofessionals and other educators, and pretty much majority of them have been getting vaccinated. And then as for students, we've been working right now with kids that are about 12 years old and up to get vaccinated. They've been participating in that. We've also been doing different partnerships with different community partners across the city, from South Baton Rouge to North Baton Rouge, to provide vaccination for children. Yes?
Can you give us some insights why you had such a tussle with teachers to get them back into the classroom earlier?
Yes. So as you all know, I started one of the part of our program was Smart Start, which was to get kids back acclimated back into school. And in my engagement at the town halls and also engagement with a lot of different families and community folks, what I heard pretty clearly was teachers were exhausted. And as you know, we're not the only district in the country with the exhaustion. And for me, what was important was trying to get more days for kids in school, because not all the children were able to go into school. I mean, I had listened to a lot of people who actually wanted more than 8 days, but I thought that was important to figure out how we can get kids back to acclimate back into school. And I think that that was where the challenge was a little bit. So I heard the feedback, I engaged with folks, and I said, okay, can we put those days in the calendar so we can still get to the same goal? Because the goal wasn't about teachers coming back only early, but the goal is about providing more days and opportunities for kids to be in the school, and that was kind of what we did. So we ended up coming down to an agreement where we have teachers coming the first week in August back. Students will actually start on August 11th, and we actually have more days in the calendar. Our calendar is a little bit on the light side of days for schools than others, and so I'm a big proponent of wanting to have more days for kids in schools. So that's kind of where we are. But I would also say too, I'm also a proponent for us staying healthy and for us to be in a very good state. This year has been kind of unprecedented for many of us across the country, but I will say this, East Baton Rouge and the city has been very resilient in that, because compared to some of my other colleagues I talk to in other parts of the country, they're not as far as we are, and so I think we should give ourselves a very good pat on the back on how we've been able to handle that moving forward. Yes?
Dr. Narcisse,
Hey, Charles.
back to some of the COVID stuff, there's some districts around the country, and there's been federal money made available for the purpose of doing some surveillance testing for COVID this school year. Is that something you are considering at any level? I didn't know if there were what y'all thoughts were on that.
Yeah, so in terms of surveillance, yeah, our goal is to kind of continue. One of the things that we've been putting most of our funds into is air quality. And so how do we make sure we can put more money into that? We've actually used some of our dollars to do that in terms of looking at some of our systems in the buildings to make sure that air quality is at a much better rate. I don't have the exact number for that, but we did allocate a good amount of dollars for that to happen in our funds that we receive for relief from the federal government. A part of also in that process have been trying to invest as much in our, we call it, our fancy word is PPP, to ensure that we are still getting cleaning supplies and those type of things, because I think even when COVID is done, we still have to invest in protocols to keep our students safe and follow cleaning protocols and those things. I think that COVID has actually brought us into a space where we're even more mindful about that than ever before. And I also think our children have learned from that as well. And so it's just a process that we're working through in that space.
But are you actually going to do any paid COVID testing for students or teachers this year? Is that even in the future?
When you say paid COVID testing,
Like a hospital might do, there is money out there where the school district could have a regular surveillance testing to see how much COVID is in the school.
well, in our current protocols, we do test for that already. And
Well,
when,
you test if you have symptoms, but not as a matter of course. It's like if there's a reason to test, you test. But this is beyond that. This is like a regular, do we have this?
like a checkpoint, is that right?
Yeah. Again, I've seen the state has put out information about districts have that ability to do some more on that front. I wasn't sure if you guys.
Yeah, we've been working right now with our health advisory committee, which includes doctors and nurses and other health officials, to put some protocols in place around monitoring to see where things are happening. I don't have those details in front of me right now, but I do know that we've been talking through about what the new protocols will be and how do we look at that in terms of an ongoing basis. Yes.
The new mandatory kindergarten
Yeah, I was super excited about that, but I will say this. I think kindergarten was overdue. I'm in the early childhood space. I think that it's important for us to be thinking about kids to go to school as early as possible, because kids fall behind from the time they're born, I tell people, not when they start going to school. Because if a parent has enough resources and those things, then it helps to move that forward. But if they don't have those resources, that's where the gap actually begins, and the opportunity gap begins to become wider for kids in school. And so I was super excited to see it by law. I'm looking forward to when we have early childhood as a law to make sure that we can start doing that for kids to be able to go to school as early as possible. Many of the challenges that we have is because we don't start looking at children from the time that they're born getting matriculated all the way through. And this is why we talked a lot about, I try to tell folks about this cradle to career approach. You have to start thinking about kids from 0 to 4, not when they get to 3 or 4 years old, that we need to start educating them in the process. And if we do that in a very good way, you can begin to see children gain in kindergarten, first and second grade. I mean, we have a school, for example, one of our pre-K 4 schools that I went to visit when I was here. I believe it was Del Mont, where I looked at a 4-year-old child in a pre-K 4 class being able to read. Imagine the consistency of that across an entire school system. At 4 years old, you are actually reading. The difference that it makes by the time you get to the next grade level is tremendous. But that consistency across our city is not there, and that cuts through all types of people, no matter where you are, what color, what neighborhood, what community. So what I'm looking for is a consistency that we can be able to say, we're going to double down on ensuring that we can have children from 0 to 4 not only do their alphabets, but read and start these basic foundation pieces, so by the time they move up, those gaps are going away. And I think that that has to be our approach in the city. Yes?
A few weeks ago, the school board took up the question of whether to authorize additional charter schools. As you know, they rejected 2 applications and approved the 3rd. As far as I know, I didn't hear you weigh in on that topic.
Yes.
What is your recommendation regarding charter schools, and did you agree with what they did on this past issue?
Yeah, so my approach so first let me tell you this, I'm not into types. One thing I've learned coming to Baton Rouge is everyone talks about this type or that type of school. What I'm into is whether the kids are learning or not. We have schools that are doing well, and we have schools that are not doing well, and they fall in all those categories, whether it's traditional, charter, whatever category that you put it in. I think the reality for us, when people ask me whether I weighed in or not, my job was to help provide all of the information to the board, and then they have to vote on it. If the law changed, if they said that I had to decide, then it'd be a different conversation, I would say. But what I try to do is help them understand, here's the full context. Since 2018, the district has allowed charters to come in, and they are a great strategy. Charters are no different than magnet programs. I think what I get concerned since I've arrived in Baton Rouge is this separation of different groups, and all the kids are our kids, whether they are in a specialty school, a charter school, a magnet school, whatever you call them, these are all our kids. And I think what's important for me is that we're able to give families the best opportunities to have the best choice that they can make. And I think that's kind of where I stood. I think the conversation where, do you like this or don't like that, or do you feel this and that, I tell folks, if the charter school provides a great opportunity, then great. If that school provides a great, but I think that we need to see it more of the sum of all, and just not one strategy helps everything. We need to have multiple strategies in our approach.
So you touched on pre-K and putting a focus on that. So what are some of the key changes that you're trying to make in expanding, and what can families expect for that?
Yeah, so some of the key things that we're doing is we're going to be working on trying to assess children across the system. We've been unifying around common benchmarks for all schools across our system, so there's better quality control. We tell folks we should know how kids will perform before they get to a leap. We should know how kids are doing before they, be able to pre-predict how they're struggling in a particular area before they get there. So that's one space we're doing that. The other option is around curriculum, how we're kind of unifying some curriculum between our gifted schools, our magnets, and our traditional schools. We're working on some of those components right now as we lead. We've also put a lot of investment doubling down around literacy. I think it's important that we get to focus on more children reading across this city. See, I'm in a space right now where I want us to talk more about kids learning and how we can help them provide opportunities to be able to read and write and do those type of things as a city than we do anything else. And I think that those are the spaces that we're trying to do things. We're also looking at about how we're helping our families around parent engagement. We're putting much more parent engagement coaches across schools. One thing that we noticed in some of our investments was that people talked about how do we only invest in particular schools, whether they're this particular grade or not. I think regardless of the grade the school's in, we should be able to provide support to them so they can be accelerating no matter where they are in the process. And I think that that's how we've been thinking about those investments.
And you mentioned earlier too, the parish being kind of broken up into 5 different little sections based on their different resources that they need. Can you kind of explain, the differences in what these different little regions are going to need to succeed?
Yeah, so every region in the way that we've broken up, it's much more of an internal process for us. Everyone doesn't need the same thing. I think the way that, at least my understanding since I've arrived in Baton Rouge, we would try to provide everybody with the same sets of resources, whether they need it or not. And I think what we can do in streamline our dollars in a much better way is if one school needs this or this particular community needs something, then how do we support those sets of schools in that community in one particular way? If another school needs something in another specific way in the community, then how do we help provide that support within that particular way? And I think it's important for us to kind of think through in a much more differentiated manner on providing supports, because schools are at different places at different times. And there's different sets of students that have different needs. I mean, if you walk in, you ask any teacher in East Baton Rouge, they'll tell you they have to differentiate in a classroom. And well, differentiation means providing different sets of needs for different children in different ways to still get them to the marker that they need to get to. And a part of the work I see is for us to be clear about what does quality mean for us as a school system and as a city. And to me, quality means not just being able to read and write, but children being able to become workforce ready. When I go to sleep at night, I tell folks the thing I care about is that my 2 daughters will have a job. And in that job, they will be successful citizens in providing back to the community that they decide to live in. And I think that that's kind of our approach in this work.